Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we're going to be doing this bloody globe drip. I just call it a bloody globe. But yeah, that's what we're going to be doing today. And then the lid, I feel like the lid is so cool. So if you want to know how I make this, just stay tuned. Hey guys, so let's jump right into it. We're going to be using a 16-ounce glass globe. I got this from the Stainless Steel Depot. And I bought this fake bottle of blood last year at Walmart in the Halloween section. And I never used it. I originally bought it because I wanted to do like the trend of the pumpkins with like the ghost. But I never got to do that, so I just kept it. And I tried it out for this project and it worked perfectly fine. I absolutely love how it worked. So to get the blood drip effect, we're going to be mixing. I mixed this off camera just because I didn't know if it was going to work or not. But I mixed like maybe like a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons of it. And then I added glycerin. And then I just mixed it and it kind of gave it like a gooey consistency. And that's perfectly fine. And you're going to use a syringe to pour this into the hole. And when you're using this bottle of blood, it does say that it does stain, so I didn't want to risk getting it all over my hands or my clothes. So I just was cautious and put on a pair of gloves. When you're making a blood drip globe, you don't necessarily have to fill the cup all the way to the top as to when you're using like just glitter and regular, like your regular mix of like the water with the glycerin and the glitter. But for this one, I kind of only did like less than half of the cup because the point of it is to flow like it's actual blood. So make sure not to fill up the cup. You could probably even get away with half, but I don't think it would flow as much as it does when you fill it less than half. The cool thing about these glass globes from the Stainless Steel Depot, they come with the plug already. So they fit perfectly well into the little hole at the bottom. And sometimes they come with like an extra one, so I just like to keep that on hand and save it for another project. And they snap perfectly in there. So once you snap that in there, you kind of clean it off and then you add like a little bit of UV resin just to make sure nothing drips out of the cup. When I add the UV resin, I kind of like to let it spread on its own, but not too much. And then I use a small torch to pop any air bubbles. And then I go ahead and cure this for 1 to 2 or 3 minutes, depending on whatever resin you're using. You could also do this outside underneath the sun if you don't have a UV light. Quick tip: when you're adding your UV resin to the bottom, you want to make sure you add a little bit, because if you add too much, you could get a wonky butt. You can always heat it up and pick it with like a tool pick once it's cured. But just to avoid all that hassle, just add a little bit. Once that's done, you want to check for any blood or fake blood dripping out of the globe. And you also want to check to see if you have a wonky bottom. My tripod was the one that was actually moving, so this cup did not have a wonky bottom. And then you want to clean it. Do not clean this with alcohol because we are going to be adding a UV DTF wrap, but you just want to make sure you get any dust and oils off of it. Sped through this process just because I didn't want this video to be extremely long, but this is a UV DTF wrap, and to wrap it around the tumbler you want to squeegee out the design, and then you want to remove only less than half of the paper, the backing, and then you want to start from that end and work your way out, rotating the cup but also squeegeeing out the backing part. And once you get to the back of the cup, you just want to like squeegee it on really well before you remove the protective layer on top of the wrap. Just remember to work very slow with these because you can cause tearing or damaging the UV wrap. To move on to the lid, we are going to be adding rhinestones on top of this entire design. So this is what I came up with, a blood drop effect on the lid. And I did cut this off with my Cricut, and I also did an offset, meaning it's going to have a black like border outline just so it doesn't get lost on top of the lid. Bamboo lids do come with a straw plug, so you want to remove it before you add any paint or rhinestones or anything to the lid. But to remove it, be very careful because if you use like a pick tool like the one that you can see, you can pierce through it. So try to avoid using anything that will damage it. If you could remove it with your fingernails or fingers, that's perfectly fine. We're gonna set the decal aside and we're gonna get started on our lid. We're gonna be mixing, I like to mix my chalk paint and my acrylic paint, like the color I'm gonna use, together just because I like the result it gives me. This is completely optional and up to your preference, but this is what works for me and I absolutely love it. So you're just gonna mix, and then with a small paintbrush, you just paint over the whole lid. Be careful not to get any paint on the bottom inside of the lid and also where the straw plug goes. And I like to use this 2-inch PVC pipe, and I think I got it at Home Depot, and it works perfectly well for these lids. It makes it easier to hold onto the lid when you're working on it. So I like to use that, and then I just like to do my painting right on top of it. Once you paint the entire top of the lid, don't forget to paint the side rim of the lid. You could probably do 1 coat to 2 coats. I like to do 2 coats just because I want it to be super white underneath. So I just did 2 coats of the paint on the side of the rim and on the top. Did seal the paint on the lid with polyacrylic clear, and I like to do that because sometimes when you're working with acrylic paints and you put rhinestones on top of it, when you go to wash it, the paint comes off and the little tiny gaps it has, and then you could see through the lid, and I don't like that. So I like to add polyacrylic clear to seal it. You could seal it with whatever you have. You could even do clear spray paint, but I like to use a polyacrylic. Now, when you're adding your decal onto the lid, you have to use a stronger grip transfer tape because the red is holographic vinyl. But the bad thing about this is it actually pulled a little bit of the seal and a little bit of the paint. So just be cautious as to what transfer tape you're using. You could possibly even add this maybe with your fingers. I just didn't think of it until way after. So yeah, just be cautious of what transfer tape you're using on the surface that you painted. After I got done with that, I went back with a smaller paintbrush, the same one that I used to seal the lid with the polyacrylic, and I added a tiny bit to the spots where it lifted. That way when I do apply the rhinestone, it still has the seal on it. You want to cut out the hole where the straw hole is at. I just used a super sharp craft knife, and you just want to push up against where you could feel the rim of the straw hole. You just want to be careful when you're doing this so you don't cut yourself, and also so you don't scratch the lid underneath the vinyl. You're gonna want to just keep cutting around the straw hole just so you could get a clean cut and a clean like circle. But yeah, just make sure you're careful again so you don't cut yourself or damage the lid itself. For the little overlap that it has of one of the drops, you want to just flip the lid upside down and then go again with the sharp craft knife and just cut the edge of it. You want to prep for the rhinestones, you want to take a little piece of sanding paper. I don't know what grit this is, but you want to sand the vinyl. I know this is gonna look scary at first because this is holographic vinyl, so it kind of looks like you're taking the red off of the vinyl, but remember we are gonna be adding rhinestones on top of this. You just want to sand it just so you could give the glue something to adhere to. We're going to be adding the rhinestones, and like I said, we did do an offset of this and it was black, so we're going to be adding black rhinestones to the outline of this just so it doesn't get lost with the other rhinestones that we are going to be adding. These are I think 2 mm and they're super tiny, so you just want to add these all over the outline and even the little droplets it has. Excuse the poor quality of these rhinestone clips. I did this in my room just because it was already very late at night to be in my craft room, and I didn't want to be back there because it gets a little creepy at night. So yeah, excuse the poor quality and the bad lighting and the shaking of my tripod. You are done with the black rhinestones and doing the outline, you want to move on to the red. I am using 2 mm and 3 mm for the entire red part of the design. Once you start to add the red rhinestones, you can't even see the part where it's scuffed up from the sandpaper. So that's the cool thing about it, is that you can sand down holographic vinyl or vinyl, and if you add something on top of it, you won't see it. once you are done adding the red rhinestones, you want to move on to the white rhinestones. And I am using two different sizes, 3mm and 5mm, and you just add that to the entire white part of the lid. Once I'm done adding the rhinestones, what I like to do is take my lid and my PVC pipe and put it upside down and kind of like flatten it, if that makes sense, just so you could add a little bit of pressure to the rhinestones, and so it makes it easier for them to adhere onto the glue a little bit better. That is it for today's video. I love how this turned out. I think it's super cool. If you guys enjoyed it, please add a blood drop in the comment section, just so I know you stayed through the entire video. And if you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and turn on the notification bell so you're notified whenever we do upload a new video. Thank you guys so much again for watching.